Time to start. I'm going to show you by filing the nails. Just make sure you file them nice and round, nice and even. Make sure there's no lumps and bumps. And then you can use your e-file. Grab your sanding band. Make sure that your e-file has the correct speed. Change your sanding band, please, in between every client. Make sure that your e-file is at the speed that you need it to be. Not too high, definitely not too low because it won't do any work. But you just want to take all the shine off of the natural nail. And then make sure you get right around the cuticle just to get all that buildup that's on the nail. Make sure you go slow. Make sure you don't apply any pressure. You just want to apply enough pressure to take off the cuticle that's residue that's left over, but you don't want to leave any indents in the nail. Remember, the ring of fire is bad. So just very lightly buff over it, take off all that excess, and get all the shine off of the natural nail. That's basically all you want to do. Here I'm just going right over, just pushing my cuticle back a little bit and getting the shine off. Once you've done the shine removal with the e-file, see how my nail has an indent? So I want to get in that indentation with the nail file. The nail file that I'm using is the 180 grit, and I just want to buff right into that. It serves as a buffer just to take the shine off. I don't want to even out the whole nail because it'll take off layers of the nail, and you really don't want that. You just want to get it as dry as possible. At this point, I usually switch out my bit and I go back in with a cuticle bit, which is perfect because everybody needs their cuticle bits. I make sure the speed is very low and I just get right up in the cuticle. Now with this, I'm not touching the nail. You can't really see it well here, but I'm not really touching the nail. What I'm doing is I'm touching the skin and I'm going right underneath the skin without putting any pressure and without touching the nail. And I'm just getting right underneath the skin and lifting the skin and making sure I get whatever skin has lifted off with that e-bit. Then just dust it off. Check the nail again. After you dust it, check it again. Get off all the shine. Get off any excess cuticle, anything that's excess, just get it off. It's the perfect time to do this. Prep is very important. Then you're gonna apply the nail tips. After you're done with everything, you're gonna apply the nail tips. These are the ones I'm using today because I just felt like doing a coffin, but I didn't want to do the coffin. I just wanted it to be easy. Make sure when you're gluing the tip that the tip fits from side wall to side wall. Making sure there's no gap. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but there's a tiny little gap. Just a tiny gap. It's not really that big. That's not what you want. That'll affect the whole shape of the nail. Go a size up, go 2 sizes up, keep going until you find the size that you need. Then when you size it, you see how this one covers both sides, and it actually goes a little bit over. So because it goes a little bit over, all I'm gonna do is file the sides real quick, just a little bit. I don't put pressure on it. I just 1 2 3 1 2 3, and then it should fit my nail perfectly fine. So when I come to apply it, it fits now from side wall to side wall, perfect. There's no gap, there's no indent. It leaves it perfectly fine. Add your little drop of glue. I'm sorry, my glue was spilling over when I added it. This is the quick dry one. So all you really need is a little drop, because when you put it in the center and you press the tip, it'll spread out by itself. Make sure that that tip is right on the tip of the nail. You don't want to put the tip halfway through the nail. You want it right on the tip of the nail. You want to make sure your side walls line up evenly, and you want it right on the tip. If you feel like it's loose a little bit, just pinch it in a little bit. It'll stay. Get it off of the nail. Make sure you get it off of your skin or your client's skin. Look at the nail. Make sure it's even. And then you're just going to clip it into whatever length you want. Or into whatever length your client wants, I should say. After you clip it, let them check it. If it's too long, if it's way too long, clip it down again. If it's not way too long and they just want it a little bit, just go straight into filing and don't even worry about clipping it, because after you're done filing, you're gonna bring the nail down a little bit. You see how I get right in with the file underneath the tip? You want to make sure you get right underneath the tip and file in, right underneath. And you also want to make sure you do this with light pressure. I usually use 100 to an 80 grit file here, just because number one, I don't want it to be too coarse to where it cuts the client. But number two, I want it to be coarse enough that I can get right underneath and file the nail without putting any pressure. Here, I'm not putting any pressure. I'm letting the nail file do the work. This is an 80 grit file. This file is doing all the work for me. I'm not doing anything. I'm getting right underneath it without taking the side wall off. You see where the tip and my nail meet? I don't want to take that side wall off. I also don't want there to be an indent there from filing. Check the nail, make sure the nail is straight, and then file the top of the nail just to make sure that it's straight instead of crooked. Usually when you cut it with the tip, with the nail cutter, it'll be a little bit crooked. They don't always come out perfect. So you just keep filing it, keep checking the angles, 360 degrees. You want to check every angle of the nail to make sure that you've gotten it in the precise shape that you want it to be in. Here, this finger that I'm using is a little crooked, so I have to file one side more than the other. There's always little things that you want to look at. Normally, I file my client's hands like this so that I can see, but since I'm doing my own finger, I have to flip it over because it's a little easier for me to file. See how I hold my finger with my thumb? If I was filing my client's hand, I'd be holding their nails with my index and my thumb to make sure that I file it correctly. Check the nail. Make sure you've gotten it to your desired shape. And then dust it. You see how I went over it with my finger? That's a no-no. You never want to do that because you put natural oils back onto it. Now I'm going in again with my sanding band on a low speed, and I'm just going to take all that shine off of the nail tip, and all the shine that I had with the glue, I'm going to remove it with the sanding band, just very lightly. I'm not putting any pressure, I'm just letting it work. I turned off the sanding band. Now I'm going to go in with my regular file, the 80 grit that I just used, and I'm going to lower the tip down a little bit. Just blend it, take off all the shine. I'm not really blending, I'm taking off all of the shine. Once the shine is gone, I'm going to go back in with my 180 grit file. It's my favorite file to use. 180 grit equals as a buffer, so it really doesn't take off layers of the skin. Layers of the nail. Just make sure you don't apply any pressure. You just want to get all the shine off of the nail. You're going to dust it, you're going to dehydrate, and you're going to prime. My dehydrator is a dual bond. It's an acid-free primer. So all I have to do is put this on. I usually put one coat, and then I'll do all 10 fingers like that, and then I'll come back in and put a second coat. And I only put it on the natural nail. See, I would wait for all 10 fingers and then come back in and do it again. Now it's time for the acrylic. Get your station ready. Make sure there's no dust. Make sure your acrylic jars are where you need them to be. So your acrylic and your polymer and your monomer jar are exactly where they need to be so that you can use them however you're more comfortable. I'm only showing you one nail, so I don't need a lot of liquid. Just gonna clean my brush out real quick. And here I'm gonna apply the acrylic. When applying acrylic, it's very important that you practice your monomer polymer ratio. You don't want your bead to be too dry or too wet. You want to place it and pat it. See how I'm not putting too much pressure on it? In between pats, I clean my brush. I don't dip it back into the liquid and clean it. I just wipe it on the Bounty. Just wipe it and then pat it back into place. I'm not patting it so hard that it's leaving an indent. I'm just walking it around. Just light little pats to get it to fall into place. If I put any type of pressure on this brush, it will completely move the acrylic. So that means that wherever I put the acrylic, it'll no longer be there because I'll have swiped it all off. That's why I don't swipe. I usually just pat it right into place. And if I do swipe, it's very lightly, very barely touching it. So I don't take off all the product that I just put on. You don't want to ever take off the amount of product that you put on because it'll make it harder for you to build that nail later. Make sure you always clean the sides. Always go in and clean the sides of your nail. I'm leaving this at regular speed. I didn't speed this up. I wanted you to see exactly what I'm doing. Clean the sides, go underneath, clean the sides. And then you just make sure you check it. Anything that needs to be cleaned, you clean. But you don't want to put too much pressure on it. After the acrylic is a little bit dry, you can run over it just to check if there's any bumps and lumps. But it should be perfect if you do the application the way that I'm showing you here. Then you want to go in with your second bead. Notice I wet my brush, wipe my brush off some. Not all the liquid is getting wiped off. I take my second bead, use my pinky as an anchor, and place my second bead right halfway between the first bead and the cuticle. And with this one, I'm just going to push it into place. Now you can't really tell here, but I did flood the cuticle a little bit. I'm just going in, swiping it down without putting pressure. Since I flood the cuticle, I have to go back in with my brush and I have to clean all that. This is the part where you want to make sure you move fast, this second bead. You want to move extremely fast. You want to move fast enough to catch all that acrylic. Now I'm just showing this in regular speed. So far I've been applying acrylic almost 12 minutes to one finger. So I'm not telling you have to do a 3-minute finger. I'm just telling you, take your time, but make sure you're precise. If the cuticle keeps flooding with acrylic, just keep cleaning it with the tip of your brush. Wipe off your brush, clean the cuticle. Wipe off your brush, clean the cuticle. You always want to wipe your brush off in between. Now I'm going in with the third bead. This one goes right up to the cuticle. I'm just placing it and then I'm patting it in. Just patting it ever so lightly into the cuticle. And then I'm going to swipe off the rest. Because I already got the structure that I needed at the beginning, I can just swipe off the rest. I don't need to worry about putting too much. Then you want to clean the cuticle. You want to make sure you get it right up. You want to make sure the brush is touching the eponychium. And get right up to it and just really lightly pick up off that excess cuticle that flooded it. Now this nail is too thin, so I'm going to go in and add another bead. Now that it's dry, you see how it's matte? When it's matte like that, you can tell that it's drying. I'm checking 360, all my angles. I see that it's a little too flat right here. So I'm just going to add a little bead right there. Just enough to make sure that it's perfect. So that when I do start filing, I don't have to file so much. You see, I don't have to file so much. I don't have to file a little bit. With this one, I just pat it in place. See how I messed up and the bead went somewhere else? And I'm just patting it. And then I wipe off all the excess. Then I'm checking 360 again to make sure that everything is the way that I want it to be. There's no bumps and lumps. Get right up on the eponychium, clean around the cuticle. Then I clean my brush. Close my acrylic so no dust gets in it. Clean your monomer jar. I usually fold my Bounty, whichever one I used. I usually fold it and then I roll it up, stick it right in the monomer jar, give it a couple of twists, and that goes into an aluminum foil and it goes into the garbage. And now I just wait for it to dry. I'm tapping it. It's not making any noise. It's matte, but it's not making any noise. When I start hearing that's the sound I want to hear. That's the sound of magic. That's the sound of magic. That lets me know I can start filing. The same way I filed the tip at the beginning is the same way I'm going to file it now. And all I'm doing this time is shaping the acrylic that's on the nail. So I'm not going to change the shape. I'm just going to file, get all the acrylic off of the skin, file all that excess acrylic that I couldn't get off with the brush because I didn't have enough time or because it changed the shape. Just file off all that extra, and then you can go right around the cuticle. Remember, if you don't put any pressure, you can go around the cuticle with the nail file and not cut your client. So once you're done filing, just check it. Make sure you didn't change the shape too much. Make sure everything is where it needs to be. And then you can go right on in and sand it down, do whatever you need to do with the safety bit. I always start with the safety bit. I make sure that the speed is up, but I don't want the speed to be too high. It's my safety bit. It's round on the top so it doesn't cut clients. Make sure that the speed is up just enough to get the acrylic off, but not enough to where it's so fast that it hurts me. I hear I'm actually putting pressure on my hand. And you see that it leaves the mark where I'm putting it, but it doesn't hurt me. It's not cutting me. If you do this to yourself and it hurts, it's going to hurt your client. Here I go underneath the nail. And I'm going to make sure that the safety bit is straight with the nail, just to give me that little curve. I'm going to make sure it's straight underneath, and I'm going to go right underneath and just make a little curve. I'm not going to put too much pressure because I don't want to take off too much. I like the thickness of this nail and I want to keep it. Then I'm going to go here and I'm just going to, the same thing, apply a little bit of pressure, but not too much because I like the thickness of this nail. I did the application process. It was nearly perfect. So now I just want to get the tiny bit of excess off and I want to seal that cuticle. So with this bit, I'm going to get right up on the eponychium and I'm going to go around the edges, buff off the top, make sure it's nice and smooth, and I'm going to go around at a 45-degree angle and I'm going to touch all that cuticle. And then I'm going to come back down and just make sure that it's even again. I don't want any bumps and lumps in my acrylic. Just making sure it's nice and even. Don't forget to check your profile of your nail 360 degrees. You want to check every angle just to make sure you got everything. If you feel like you missed a spot, you can go right over that spot again. It's no problem. Remember to always drill from one side of the nail to the other. If you're left-handed, you want to drill from the left side to the right hand. I'm right-handed, so I drill from the right to the left. That's why you can change the direction of your nail drill so that you can file to wherever it makes you more comfortable. Now I'm going to switch my piece. Now this is crucial. This is this bit that I use to seal the nail. This is the safety, this is the fine bit, but not the fine safety bit. This is just the fine bit. This is the one that can cut the client. So with this one, I'm going to make sure the speed is very slow, very, very slow. I'm going to get right up on the cuticle and I'm not going to put any pressure at all. I'm going to make sure I'm at a 45-degree angle and I'm going to get right up in that cuticle. If you can see how close I am, I'm going to get right in it. I'm going to buff off the nail from one direction to the other. And then I'm going to get right in there. That's it. That's all I do with that one. I'm not putting any pressure. You see how I can touch my hand in all directions? I'm not putting any pressure, and it's low. So even if I do put pressure, it'll stop. It won't let me cut the client. You never want to have your drill bit to a speed where it can cut your client or burn your client. With the sanding band, the same sanding band I used at the beginning, I'm going to take it. I'm going to buff the nail from one direction to the other just to make sure that there are no bumps and lumps. If I buff the nail with this and a piece of the nail doesn't get buffed, that means that there's an indent there and I have to file off more. If I don't have enough acrylic, I have to go back to the acrylic and apply more acrylic. But with this drill, I basically do the same thing I did with the other two. I'm going to get right up above it. With this one, you could use it the same speed that you used to take off the shine at the beginning. Remember, you don't have to put a ton of pressure. With this one, it doesn't have to be the smallest amount of pressure, but you also don't want to put a ton of pressure. You don't have to. The last step is very simple. You just buff it all off. Just a close-up so you can see from one direction to the next. And check all your angles. Now I'm going to go in with my cuticle bit. I always go in with 3 to 4 bits, depending on the clients that I'm doing. Some clients need more attention than others. Sometimes you made the nail too bulky, so you need to go in with a coarse bit and then go in with another bit and then go in with another bit just to even it all out. Sometimes you can do it with 1 bit. I like to use between 2 to 4 bits, personally. It's a preference. With this one, I just get right up on the cuticle. The same way I did when I was removing the cuticle the first time. I try to get it right underneath the skin without touching the natural nail. And then I touch the acrylic just a little bit. Last step, cut the loose eponychium. All of that dead skin that you see there, all of that hanging skin. I don't want to say dead skin because sometimes you can nick somebody and it's not that that skin is ready to come off. It's just that that skin was just extra loose, but it wasn't ready to come off. So all of that skin that you can tell it's ready to come off, you can go ahead and clip that right off. I don't like to do manicures before I give a full set just because that extra skin or that hard skin gives me the protection I need in case I go too far with the drill. It rarely happens now, but I used to cut a lot of people, so I try to be extra cautious. Go in. Don't forget to check all your angles. With everything you do, you want to check all of your angles. Just get everything that you need to get off. And then you buff. I'm going to take my buffer and I'm just going to buff the nail. I don't want the nail to be completely smooth because I'm adding polish, but I do want it to be, I want it to have ridges, but not too many ridges. I just want to take off all that excess of the ridges that I had put originally. You dust it off and you should be good. Ready for